Okay, this is the second talk. I'm trying to aim for these talks to be about 15 minutes long, and this one's about judging artworks, you know, whether something's any good or not. So if we go back to one of the slides I showed last week, we're just starting with this idea of description and interpretation as our way of kind of judging an artwork. And the reason we do this is to kind of make sure that we don't kind of skim over the details, that we make an informed criticism of an artwork as opposed to just dismissing it without really looking at it. Okay, so these questions, it's really about looking at what is there, what am I looking at. So we're going to look at Tracey Emin's Tent. This piece of work from 1995, everyone I have ever slept with in her life to that point. So yeah. So Tracey Emin's a well-known artist. She's from the UK. You may have some knowledge and experience of her work. You may have studied her at school. You may know that she's quite controversial. If you're new to the UK, if you haven't lived here before, then she's kind of considered to be a YBA, and our YBA is a young British artist, and people that kind of came through around 1990 and became very kind of popular and successful. So she's extremely highly regarded within the art world. So last week I mentioned formal elements. It might be better to sort of say visual elements, because it's kind of a slightly broader way of saying what are the separate bits that I'm looking at. So visual, obviously what you can see. Elements, again, this idea of the parts of an image. So what's a visual element? Well, it could just be any part of an image or design. They could be marks. At the start of the course we kind of encourage experimentation with mark making, so you can look at other images and see, you know, what kind of marks that have been made or played with. If it's a painting, there might be kind of colours and shapes as well as marks. It could be objects. Objects might be placed together, or there might be photographs of objects, or there might be bits of objects that have been kind of chopped up. It could be that people have used a lot of lines, or they've kind of worked with textures, or they've worked with something very dark and light to create their artwork. Or it could be you know, text, if we're looking at graphic design or in particular, but I mean text appears in any kind of artwork really. There's not a limit necessarily. We don't consider there to be limits or boundaries. In fact, we positively encourage you to kind of work across different disciplines like graphic design or fine art. And there could be different materials used, you know, thinking about a garment maybe that uses different materials or combines interesting materials, or cloth. So just to sum up, any section or part or even main feature, main bit of an artwork. Okay, so could you in your journal just take a note of how many elements, visual elements, you can see in this artwork? And if you're watching this video, can you pause this video now and make a note of these elements, looking at these two images of the one artwork in your journal? So the best way to begin to analyse and evaluate, judge an artwork, is to list all of the elements you see. This will help you understand how it was made. That's very important, because how it was made, or what it was made with, more to the point, is really affects what the work means, or can affect what the work means. But understanding how something was made helps you just understand the piece. Okay. Its main characteristic is that, or the main thing about it, is that it's a tent. So it's really about naming the obvious. When I say most of it looks like it's been hand sewn, most of the stuff that's been put into the tent or onto the tent or inside the tent looks like it's been hand sewn. And there are hand cut letters made out of fabric to form letters and words, hand cut shapes. The tent is open, so you can see the letters. I think that's significant. If it was closed, it would be a different kind of piece or artwork. There haven't been uniform colours used in the letters and words that have been cut out of fabric. There are lots of different colours used. That could be important. The letters are different sizes. If they're all the same, it would be doing a slightly different thing. It would mean something slightly different. Letters on different coloured backgrounds. So the letters are different coloured and they're on different coloured backgrounds. There's also handwritten text that you can see around the bottom of the image here. So these texts presumably relate to the names and the whole general concept of everyone I've ever slept with. And there's hand-cut text on the floor of the tent also. She stuck lots of different male and female names all over the inside of the tent. So why did she use a tent? Well, it's an unusual choice for an artwork. Where do you normally see tents? Well, this is the thing I think is important. Why is a tent in a gallery like this? Because a tent's context, where you'd normally put a tent is in a field, it provides shelter out in the open. Is the title deliberately provocative? Everyone I've ever slept with. And how is it relevant to the tent? If it was just called My Tent, would it have the same impact? So do you think she's trying to be deliberately provocative? What's she doing with the title of this artwork? The contrast in the different visual elements draw you in. I've talked about the hand-cut letters, the kind of hand-stitched. What kind of contrast do they have, do you think? And what about the change in scale of the visual elements? How does that help your eye move around the work? Sorry about the typo. So the change in scale of the visual elements is actually quite small. These kind of shapes are just slightly different from each other, and there's a kind of wobbliness to the whole thing that's comes from cutting things by hand. They haven't been done by a machine. So why has she kind of cut things by hand? She kind of does this a lot. If you have your knowledge and experience of Tracey Emin's work, there's quite a lot of examples of this sort of thing in her work. Why would she have done that? Do they help you? The handwritten text at the bottom, do they help draw you to enter the tent? You're curious to see what's written because of the title. Everyone I've ever slept with. Do you want to find out what's been written about the people that she's slept with? And this technique that she's used, it's all hand sewn. And hand sewing is kind of connected with, if you thought about it, with traditional female crafts like embroidery. So what does that suggest? If you compare that to other sculptures, this is why a later task is about comparison. If you compare that to later sculptures, how does it kind of compare? What are sculptures traditionally made of? Let's use the tent. Do you think it's eye-catching? I mean, it's an unusual thing to present. The piece has quite an eye-catching title or ear-catching title. Everyone I've ever slept with. And tents are for sleeping, aren't they? They protect you, as I say, in the outdoors. Does this work well with her idea? It's quite a neat little tent. It's quite a good container. How many people do you think? It's quite self-contained. How many do you think can sleep in there? Is it one person, two people? Does that relate to the title? To make the viewer to get inside and have a look at that, you have to get down on your hands and knees. And I think to view artworks, it's not a traditional way. Remember, this was presented in 1995, so that's that's about 18 years ago. So most artworks you're standing up to look at them. So this forces you to get down onto your hands and knees if you want to have a look, which is quite an interesting thing to make someone do if they want to view your artwork. It's kind of makes it a bit more intimate, I guess, or even that change of your kind of body position is very important, I think, to the artist. Why was it important, do you think? And why does she want to make a piece about everyone she's ever slept with? It seems so personal. I mean, why would you want to do that? Does it make you think about what art can be for? What is art for? I mean, was she thinking about, the idea was to include everyone. The concept was that she would include everyone she'd ever slept with. So that's including people she's had sex with, as well as people, that she slept in the same bed as a relative. That was the kind of point. So how does that affect you as a viewer of that? Does it help you, I mean, I'm just supposing these things, but does it help you to think seriously about your own past? Does it help you get to know, think about the part of your life that isn't known to you, your sleep, your unconscious? Does it get you to think about how some people might kind of use or prey on other people? I think it's well known, if you know anything about Tracy Emin, that she was raped as a young woman. Does it get you to think about or understand maybe better how others are damaged by relationships or what life throws at them? So this is important. I think thinking about how you judge something, how you see something as good or not good, is your kind of reasons. These are within you. These are your own kind of reasons or criteria. What reasons do you use to judge artworks? I mean, do you think it's good to see an artwork that makes you think or feel differently about something? Does that relate to Tracy Emin's piece? I mean, can you relate to the ideas? I mean, do you find you can understand them, or do you find them off-putting? Do you think it tells an interesting or complex story? Do you like the way it looks? Do you like these kind of hand-cut letters and these different fabrics and colours that are used? Do you think it's well constructed? It looks like a lot of work's gone into it with all the hand sewing. And do you think that was worth the effort? Do you think it actually communicates something? So, if you think someone's worked hard at something, you think that could be a good reason to like an artwork or think it's good. If you think, if you can see how they put it together, do you relate to that? Do you like to sew? Does it combine things in interesting ways? Does it surprise you? Have you seen anything like it before? Do you know if a lot of other people like it? Why do you think they like it? And going on to Essay Task 4, what's its background and what's its history? Essay Task 4 is more about finding out about an artwork or an artist. So, if you do or do not like this artwork, what can you say that shows you understand it? So in other words, why do others like it, do you think? Does it because it makes you think more deeply about your own life? Does it kind of grab your attention because it's a tent and it's about everyone she's ever slept with? You interact with it, you have to get down on hands and knees with it to kind of, maybe even have to get inside it to read everything. And the fact that it talks about real things that have actually happened, is that a good thing? Do you like it because of that? Do you think it's good to look at? Do you think it actually, communicates? Do you enjoy it in any way at all? Does it make you think about your own life? And why use an everyday object like a tent and not make paintings? Why can't you communicate these ideas with paintings? This artwork was valued highly in the art world, but it was destroyed accidentally in a fire. Why do so many people think it's a good artwork? Now, is it because it talks about how we treat ourselves, in that we can kind of be quite abusive to ourselves, or we can kind of make sure that we eat well, or treat people with respect, etc. Is it because it talks about how we see ourselves, in terms of our identity? Is our identity constructed through who we've ever slept with? Does that say who we are if we've kind of been, I don't know, again, abusive of our bodies? Does it show how self-destructive we can be? I mean, there's a certain element within the amount of names that are in there that sort of shows that maybe someone was a bit kind of destructive to themselves. Does it relate to you at all in your own life, or someone that you know? Does it make you think? It's actually about something real. So, is that an important thing for an artwork to do, to be about something that's real? What's not good about it? In a sense, a lot of people, I think, get upset with Emin because, why should you care? Emin says that she has empathy and sympathy for others in difficult situations. So, that's a bit of background information, but do you think that comes across in her work? Maybe the subject matter is just too embarrassing, or maybe she's just trying to shock in terms of provoking, so get attention, so her work gets shown, it's attention seeking, or it's badly constructed. You don't think that's, this sewing of it, the way it's sewn together is very well constructed, and it's just not an artwork. You might criticise it like that. You don't consider it to be an artwork. It's not serious, or it's too easy to make. What do you think? Do you think those are reasons it's not good? And these are reasons why it is good, because it's about something real. It's up to you. I mean, it's your reasons for liking an artwork. It's your criteria that matter to you, and the way that you view artworks. And it's a way of taking things slightly more in depth, and more interestingly, or looking at things more interestingly, I think, to sort of look at what's there and try and figure out, and then deciding what it's about, and then trying to decide whether it's good. So just again, reflect on this talk a little in your journal. Just write a few notes about what you understand from this, or what you think about this video. So bring the image that you had last week to the crag for the next session, and the next session should be on Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock, but we'll put a notice out onto the registers about that. In this session, write about why your artwork can be thought of being good or not good, and you have to kind of argue both sides. It's a way of kind of learning how to see the benefit or what's good in an artwork, even if you don't like it. So you have to argue both sides, why it's good and why it's not good. And again, if you've got any queries about this, there's my email, and whatever you send to me, I'll kind of bundle together and answer in the session, but it'll be a similar session to last time with discussion and individual help.